Welcome back to the Takeout. The NAACP is calling on black student athletes, fans, and alumni, also meaning donors, to boycott public universities in several southern states over the issue of voting rights. This is a response to a recent Supreme Court decision that weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and several states' subsequent efforts to redraw their congressional maps to remove majority black districts. The organization, the NAACP, has pointed to 8 states. I'll list them for you: Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, and Georgia. Opinion columnist for the Los Angeles Times, LZ Granderson, joins me now. LZ, let me ask you about this. How does this all land with you in terms of asking athletes, either at the high school level or at the college level, to take up this mantle and boycott first and most visibly?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. And second, I mean, this is history. This is not new. This is what young people have always done at the height of every social rights or social justice movement. And this is exactly part of that extension of that. Young people being asked to step up and to try to make their voices heard in matters of importance. If you think about 1968, college athletes were asked to boycott the Olympics in response to racial injustice. So as I said, this is not new for us as a nation.
Speaking of 1968, you have Tommy Smith, John Carlos, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but even in more recent, we have Ed O'Bannon, who was crucial in seeking some rights for student athletes in the context of being paid. Is that all part of this continuum?
Well, absolutely, when you consider where most of the labor is coming from. I mean, if you think about the NAACP's call for a boycott, there were 2 specific sports. Those are the revenue-driven sports, basketball and football. I don't think we really need to break down the demographics racially of what those sports look like. I think we all have a fair understanding, right? So our labor as Black people in this nation was paramount to help building this nation at its very beginning, and it's been paramount throughout the history of this country, and sports is part of that extension. So yes, that is part of this larger conversation, which is about Black people having agency over their bodies and living in a country that doesn't always love them back.
And this had definite legislative repercussions this week, as I'm sure you know, LZ, because there was a piece of legislation in the House ready to come to the floor, the SCORE Act, that would change some methods of name, image, and likeness. What college athletes are, they employees? Can they collectively bargain? And it collapsed because the Congressional Black Caucus, related to this issue, withdrew its support. So this is now part of a much broader conversation about all of college athletics and what politics can or cannot accomplish.
Well, I believe that the legislators are using every lever that they have at their disposal in reference to the Congressional Black Caucus. And certainly when you think about some of the other caucuses within the House, they too have used their numbers and power to get bills passed or brought to a vote that they want for their particular caucus. So I don't see anything, unusual about that. But what I will say specifically about this case in terms of what's happening with the Voting Rights Act, there's this idea that, it's this recent decision. No, this hasn't been a recent decision. This has been a series of decisions that have come from the Supreme Court systematically trying to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. And that has been something that's been high on the list of Justice Roberts. And so when we talk about this, I don't want it to sort of make it sound as if this is like something that's been recent. No, this has been a slow burning process for this court. And what the NAACP is saying is, let's use every lever that we have at our disposal to put a stop to this, because obviously they're not going to stop. They being whoever wants the South to rise again, they aren't going to stop until all the rights that have happened from 1965 have been revoked.
The NAACP also wants, in addition to high school athletes and college athletes, alumni, donors, and fans to boycott. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think everyone should be thinking about their own consciousness. I talk about this as a Black man. I also talk about this as a gay man. I remember covering a story, Garrett, in which there was a restaurant that was using some of its proceeds to fund anti-gay measures. And it was difficult to get queer people to stop eating at the restaurant because the chicken tastes so good. So I think every single person has to take a personal responsibility about how they feel about this measure and then step forward accordingly. But I like pointing to 1968 for 2 reasons. One, it was the height of the civil rights movement, and the Olympics was a very powerful statement for 2 reasons. One, we remember the fist on the podium because men showed up at the Olympics and they didn't boycott. But we don't remember seeing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar because he did boycott. So I think there are powerful ways in which their athletes can support the NAACP's call to a boycott. But for those individuals who don't feel comfortable doing that, there are other ways to stand up and make your voices heard as well.
LZ Granderson, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.